Okay, so welcome back. This is part two in our series where we're showing you how to, in Visual Studio Windows Forms, develop some really cool user interface graphics. And as we mentioned, a lot of people think Windows Forms in Visual Studio is very old, doesn't have a lot of graphics capabilities, and they kind of throw up their hands and move on to something that does. When in fact, if they look outside their narrow software developer world, they'll realize there's some tools out there that allow you to do some really cool user interface graphics, even in Windows Forms. We started to talk about that in part one, using some free open source software that allowed us to develop some of what you see here. We've got, for example, a panel with an image. It's got borders and shadows and a lightning bolt with a shadow and flashing lights. So we showed how to develop that in external application, bring it into Windows Forms. So as we add controls to our forms on top of each other, we come up with the issue that you see here. So for example, we added this panel, and inside the panel, we used the background image that we generated in Inkscape, and you can see it's this borderline with the shadows. And the problem comes when we add that panel with the image on top of our main form. You can see that even though the image itself has transparency, it's got an alpha channel and all of this should be transparent. In Windows Forms, it doesn't become transparent. We should see the gradient of this form image, but we just see white here. And the same thing as we add radio buttons inside of this, you can see this square white area, and that should be transparent. Same thing with this lightning bolt with the shadow. It should be transparent where it's taking the background gradient of this main form, but instead it's just white. So the image has the transparency, but Windows Forms isn't showing it. Same thing with this flashing light. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to show you some very simple 1 or 2 lines of code for each of these controls we need to add so that we can make these areas transparent. And also we're going to show you, as you see with this flashing light, what it's doing is we've got a system timer every half a second. What it's doing is it's updating the image shown in this picture box. And we're going to show you how to do that in code. Very simple. We're going to bring these images into our solution and then access them in real time every time step. So now first there's a couple concepts we need to be aware of before we get into the code on this. The first one is we need to specify for each of these controls that has an image that isn't acting transparent as it should, we're going to have to write one line of code that says, hey, this is transparent. And this is not directly accessible in your solution in the properties. You have to write a line of code to do that. The other concept we're going to have to understand is we not only have to say it's going to be transparent background, the back color is going to be transparent, we also have to tell it relative to what parent. So for example, we have a radio button here. We want its back color to be transparent relative to this control, and this is a panel that has this image. So we have to say make the radio button back color transparent and make the parent of this radio button this panel so it knows what colors to show through its transparency. With this lightning bolt, it is directly on the form, so all we have to do is say, hey, the lightning bolt back color is transparent, and it automatically knows since it's on this form 1, it's going to take the transparency and show this background image on this form. In this flashing picture box, again, we have to say it's transparent back color, but it's going to know it's relative to that form. So you're going to have to tell it it's transparent back color, and you may have to tell it what parent that is relative to. So let's take a look at the code and see what we're talking about. So here is our Form 1 designer. And as we said, we've got this panel and we have imported this PNG. And what I've done is I've added 3 radio buttons on top of that panel with the background image of the PNG. What I have to do is 2 things for this radio button. I have to say, okay, its parent is this panel control, and the radio button back color has to be transparent. So I'm going to select this radio button, and you go down here to the properties, and back color, you will not see a transparent selection here. There's nothing here that says transparent. So that's why we have to write a line of code, because it's not accessible in these properties. So you have to have a line of code that says, hey, the back color is transparent, and a second line of code that says this radio button's parent is this panel. So it knows it's transparent and to show through the background image of this panel. With this picture box, we also have to say the back color is transparent. And you can see here, again, there's no choice of transparent. You have to write a line of code. However, since the Form 1, the main Form 1 image is what is the parent, we don't have to specify it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our Form 1, and as we initialize component, we're going to add these lines of code. So what we're saying for each of the radio buttons, we're going to set its parent as that panel, and the back color is color.transparent. Same thing for radio button 2. The parent is the panel, the back color is transparent. Radio button 3, parent is the panel, back color transparent. With the picture box 1 and 2, which is this is picture box 1, this flashing light is picture box 2, all we have to do is say back color is color.transparent. It automatically knows that it's on Form 1, so it's going to do that by default. We also have to say panel 1 back color is color.transparent, and label 1 back color is color.transparent, and that is saying that this panel also has a color.transparent, so that this white area will become transparent. And again, it already knows it's on Form 1, so we don't have to specify it. And then label 1 back color is color.transparent, and this is a label we have here when we press this button. So we're going to start it up. So with those modifications, now you can see that our form has these transparent radio buttons. It's taking on the color of the background, and then this panel is taking on the color of the main form, as is this lightning bolt and also this flashing light. And then when we hit this, we have set this label. The back color is transparent, although you can't see it because we made this black. So that gives you an idea when you're adding controls on top of each other. You need to set the back color transparent, and you may need to also set the parent of that control so it will take on its color. So now let's say I have developed a couple of images. Say we've got these two images here, these PNGs. One is an orange light, one is a white light. And what I want to do is I want to bring those into my C# Visual Studio Windows Forms application and make a flashing light. Just have a system timer, and every half a second it changes the picture box image from this white light to an orange light and back again. So how do I do that? Well, here I am in my simple C# Visual Studio Windows Forms application. I've added a panel in the first video in this series, and we imported the simple image as you see here. Now what I want to do is I want to go to the toolbox and add a picture box where I can put those images every time step. So now that I have my picture box loaded, I want to select the picture box and go over to Properties and say Background Image down here and click on that. And I want to set up a project resource file. In other words, I want to bring my images, my white light and my orange light, into the project and add them as project resource files. So I'm going to select that, not the local resource, and I'm going to go Import, and I'm going to select orange light, open, and you see it's added that. I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to do the white light, open, and now we have added those as resources to our project. So hit OK, and here you can see it's added a resources folder, and then orange light and white light are available. Now you can see, if I select this, you can see that it has loaded the white light, and it is set to tile mode. I want to set that to zoom mode. And what I want to do now is go into the code so that I can access the images and change them every time step. So the first thing I want to do is set a system timer, and I'm going to set the property to 500 milliseconds or half a second. And I want to hit F7 to get into the code. And I'll do an event handler for the timer. And I'll go into the timer tick event handler and I'll copy and paste this code, and I'll define a Boolean light on equals false. And I've referenced those two images as the name of the project, .properties.resources, the name of the image without the PNG suffix. I'll enable the timer, and this should change those images every half a second. So I'll run this, and you can see it's updating that image. So a very simple way to bring images into your project and access them in your code. So now we should be at the point where we can do pretty much what you see here in this user interface, where we can bring in images, we can set transparencies, we can make flashing lights and so on. So if you like any of these videos, I encourage you to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, but most of all, please let others know that we're here so we get some views. Really appreciate it. Otherwise, take care. Have a really good day. Thanks.